Well, good morning, and welcome to the last CCC OER webinar of 2012 on OER research on student impact and faculty feedback. This is Una Daly, the Community College Outreach Director at the Open Courseware Consortium, and I want to welcome all of you this morning. We have some great presentations, speakers that are really going to share some valuable information with you. Kim Thanos from Kaleidoscope Project, Dr. Nassim Ibrahimi from Bridge to Success, and Dr. John Oper from the Florida Virtual Campus. John is filling in for Robin, who was unable to attend today. For those of you who might be new to the Collaborate system, I just want to point out that on the left-hand side of your screen, you will see some audio and video controls up at the top there. If you're on the phone, those should be turned off. They should be pushed all the way to the left-hand side. But for those who are listening on their computer, feel free to use those. Directly underneath that, you will see the participants window, and hopefully you'll see yourself and the other folks who are attending today. And directly underneath that, you should see the chat window. You can send messages to the whole room or to individual participants if you like by clicking on them and typing in that little window at the bottom. And thank you for those of you who've already introduced yourself in there. So if you haven't had a chance, please do type in. Let us know what institution or organization you're with, and if you'd like, please share some information about your interest in OER or how you heard about the webinar today. All right, now I'm going to ask you to do something techie here. We occasionally get folks from outside North America, which is quite exciting, who come to our educational outreach webinars. And so I'm going to ask you to look at the toolbar that is on the right-hand side of your participants list. And if you go down, there's about 7 or 8 little tools, and the little star one, which is the second one there, allows you to pick up. If you click on that, you can pick up one of the pointers, the hand gesture or the checkbox, and you can drag it over and drop it and let us know where you're located on the globe. All right, we got some East Coasters, some West Coasters. Excellent. Yep, it looks like we got Florida there. All right, wonderful. Looks like we've got somebody off the globe too, someone from outer space. That may just be a technical issue. It looks like we're pretty much in North America today. All right, well, welcome everybody, and glad you could make it. So, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to hear from 3 very exciting projects that have been working on OER for some time. And that's going to be the main body of our presentation. And then we will have some Q&A time at the end. For the most part, please do type in questions you have in the chat window, and I'll try and keep an eye on those. We probably won't be answering those till the end. But do remind us if for somehow I miss your question, do bring it up again at the end. All right, I'm just going to give you a little bit of background for those of you who might not be familiar with the Community College Consortium for Open Educational Resources. Our mission is expanding access to education, and we do that through several different mechanisms, and one of them is professional development for faculty, staff, and administrators. And these educational outreach webinars that we do, this is I think the 6th one we've done this fall, is part of that strategy. And all of these webinars are recorded, they're archived, and the slides are available for future reference. Our member colleges are on the screen here, and we're always looking to have other people join us. These are our official members. We do invite all interested educators to participate in our activities. And we'd love to have you as an official member, but we welcome your participation in any way you can. And now, to get to our webinar today, this has been a topic has been proposed by those who participate on our advisory board at the Community College Consortium. As faculty and folks are starting out on the OER journey, they often bring this to their deans, to their vice presidents, to their boards of trustees. And the question often comes back to them is, well, what is the impact of OER on students? How are other faculty feeling about it who are using OER? And so we have a wonderful opportunity this morning to hear from folks who have been working with OER and teams of faculty and students who have been working with OER and have some data to share with you. And in addition, several of our projects have additional research opportunities for pilot colleges who would like to get involved over the next year or two in ongoing OER projects that have a research basis associated with them. So that's very exciting. And without further ado, I want to introduce our first speaker, which is Kim Thanos from Lumen Learning. And Kim has spent the past 10 years leading cross-institutional projects that address strategic needs and challenges of higher education. Most recently, she's been the project manager for the Project Kaleidoscope team, which is significantly changing success rates of students who have the deck stacked against them. And she is working with a team of faculty, administrators, and researchers to make a big difference. Kim has recently formed the Lumen Learning company to handle the pilots going forward with Kaleidoscope. And Kim, let me just make you a moderator here so that you can move your own slides through.
Great, thanks.
All right. You can go ahead.
Right, there we go. I see my control panel now. So good morning. It looks like there was a big clump of us in the Pacific Northwest who are all sharing the same beautiful December weather. So we're all slightly underwater this morning. My presentation, as I was going through it with Una yesterday in preparation for the session today, caused me to reflect a little bit about, I feel like I'm bouncing back and forth a little bit between practical results and kind of the philosophy of the research that we're trying to do. And the reason for that is that I think we are still very early in this process. And so I want to be open and candid about some of the things that we feel like we've done well so far and some of the areas where we've struggled. And then also just kind of put our thinking out in a hope that, as with everything open, that it can be a benefit to you, but that also that we can build on each other's ideas. And so as I'm getting started, please don't hesitate to share comments in the chat window or feedback, or also if you're interested in engaging with us further in this, we'd certainly love to take advantage of broader expertise. To jump right into the project, I'll give you the 2-slide overview of Kaleidoscope. I really wanted to show our partner slide today. These are the partners that are moving forward with us into the next phase of Kaleidoscope, and we have, I think since I last spoke to this group, 2 additional partners, Tidewater Community College in Virginia and Marshall University in West Virginia. And we are in the phase right now of adding. We expect to have 20 new partners over the next, I'm guessing that we'll have those identified and be in the planning phase with all 20 over the next 3 months. So looking forward to exciting work and growth in the project. The project is really about improving student success. And so I've tried to pull out the bullets of what I believe is somewhat unique about this project. The first is that the emphasis is really on a community of institutions coming together and collaborating and working together more than it's an isolated institution or an isolated small group of faculty. The second aspect is, we're really focusing on creating and adopting open course designs. And the emphasis of the open course designs is twofold. The first is the affordability issue and access to materials issue. Our objective is to have all of the students have access to the materials the first day of the course. And then the second is to use these open resources to really encourage common assessments so that we can continue to iteratively improve the course designs and the course materials based on student results. And the one additional point I would make about what is perhaps unique about the project is we have a really strong emphasis on adoption. not developing new OER. We believe that many of you have been involved in projects that have created excellent OER, and we're looking to identify the best of the existing OER and then work with faculty members to really use that and improve that and enhance that. So it's a little bit of a different emphasis on what's happened in a lot of the more development-centered open educational resource projects, and we really appreciate the chance to use and participate with the work that's already been done. So on the research front, really we have a range of different research questions of what we're trying to understand, and the first is use. Who is impacted? How is impact created? And how many students are impacted? The second is cost, and there are some of these that are quite simple. How much of a savings do we generate for students? But beyond that, there's much more complexity around economic impact broadly for institutions. And I'll just highlight two components of that. One of them is the bookstore impact. We are trying to map economic models, especially with the new pilots that are just getting started, from the beginning, so that we don't end up in a situation where bookstore revenue shifts or is lost and people are scrambling after the fact around that. We're trying to map these economic impacts up front. Another area of complexity around the economic impact is, as we do move to OER, there is some portion of content development, management, enhancement, new revisions, keeping pace with new technology changes that we've historically outsourced to textbook providers. And so, as we're going through these kinds of changes and generating savings, we do need to be understanding what the costs of sustaining that kind of work is going to be over time and be working through the right economic model to do that. So those are the cost kind of research questions, perceptions around quality and preferences, a range of different impact questions. The most straightforward are student success. In our work, we define student success as completion with a C or better, and then completion, which would be completion without a C or better, persistence, and then the overall learning. And then perhaps the trickiest for us, that is really where we're looking going forward, is how can we be measuring learning in a way that helps us identify the right improvement opportunities for the open resources. We do have now control over our content. And with that, we can make changes, we can supplement, augment, remix, do all sorts of things with that. But where should we be doing that? Where is it really having an impact on learning? And that's one of the more complex questions that we've talked about. Let me talk a little bit about how we're trying to do these, and then to some degree the maturity. For use, we have been making a data request from the institutional research offices at the institution so that we understand, so we're really tracking which sections are using OER and which sections are using the complete Kaleidoscope course designs, and then pulling that information. We're pretty high maturity on that. I said that we're of medium maturity just to make the point that the variability in the institutional research offices across community colleges is pretty significant. And so, while it seems like you can just kind of check that box and move on to the next data gathering activity, that really is something that needs constant care and feeding. And I think as a community, as we think about how to track usage and impact, which is really key in talking about progress that we're making, I hope that where we are right now is not as good as it gets, that we do find ways to streamline this kind of reporting about the impact, about just total usage and students impacted by our work. Cost, we have some areas that we're doing really well and some that are quite immature. We do a student survey that gives us information about how much the student has spent on materials for the course. One of the challenges is, I'll use Mercy College as an example. Their Pearson, My Math Lab, and textbook had a total student cost of $170 per student. And so, theoretically, we're saving $170 per student for every student in those courses. But practically, the students are actually often buying the print version of the open text, or they are buying other materials that support their learning. So we're really trying to get a clean read from the student survey on what those savings are. In terms of the more complex economic modeling, we're going through a process of doing a strategy session with each of our new partner institutions to map that. I think we have a pretty good framework for that, but we're still quite early. I was probably a little generous with my medium rating of our maturity there. Perceptions, a pretty good process for student and faculty surveys of quality perceptions, as well as perceptions of the complete experience of having an open course that is designed around the open materials. Impact, we do some of the pieces of this better than others. Anytime that we're just capturing completion, persistence, and grading data, well, let me even cut persistence out of that. Completion and grade data. That's a pretty clean request from the IR organizations that's working well. We have matched that up with historical comparison of the same faculty member previous term. So some previous term we have a benchmark where they delivered the same course in the same delivery mode, and that becomes kind of our baseline against which we've been tracking progress. We've also kind of brought on just very recently a second approach that is the propensity score matching, which allows us to look at a range of different demographic variables and match students up within the Kaleidoscope courses and then other students taking the same course elsewhere in the college during the same term. So the propensity score matching is giving us much more of a clean apples-to-apples comparison between students, but then it's tossing in the variability of faculty member. So those are the two ways that we're really looking at impact. I will say that our persistence data, it has been our most unreliable data, I would say. You know, it's really hard when we want to get data at the end of the term and say the students persisted or didn't persist. And quite often, as you all well know, with the community college students, they're kind of popping in and out of the system, and simply not registering within 4 weeks of the end of the term does not necessarily mean that they haven't persisted. And so that timing around the persistence data, I feel like we still don't quite have that down. And then our lowest maturity is this improvement opportunity. How can we look at the summative and formative assessment results across these course designs to really identify where the OER is effectively supporting learning and where it's not, and I'll talk a little bit about where we're going with that moving forward. So that's kind of the bulk of what we're doing. I'll hit on each of these. Students impacted, we have a philosophy around this that we really want to understand total numbers impacted. I think it's really important that we can talk about that for policy and for adoption. And so we've tried to not have the perfect become the enemy of the good. So our controlled pilots where we know which faculty members are teaching which Kaleidoscope course sections, we've done a more detailed analysis of that, but we're also simply trying to understand anyone at our partner institutions who's using OER and pull those additional impacts into our numbers. And there are two reasons for that. One is that it really does give us a better view of total OER adoption. And the second is it really helps us understand where we might want to engage differently to expand those who are participating in the more controlled pilot approach. And we have greater visibility into what's happening around the campuses when we track those additional impacts. Faculty perceptions, I pulled a little bit of a couple of the pieces of the faculty comments. Great perceptions of quality of the OER. I will say we've stacked the deck here. We did tell the faculty members if they could not find OER that was of equal quality, that we wouldn't force them to use lower quality materials. We wanted to help either kind of adjust what development work was going on and take on that course design later, or we would find some higher quality materials with them. So we've certainly seen strong perceptions of quality from our faculty teams. The students, about the same. The majority of the students, 56%, believe the quality was identical. As just over 40% said it was higher quality than the texts and materials that they saw in their other courses. And when you look at the reasons for student quality being so high, they really do understand that the materials for the courses are tailored to the learning outcomes rather than the instructors teaching to the text that may or may not align quite as well with the outcomes for the course. So that's the survey instrument we use. If you've ever seen a Kaleidoscope presentation, I'm sure you've seen this slide. This is our look at the historical success benchmarks, and then it's aggregated. So completion with a C or better from the historical benchmark versus 2 terms of Kaleidoscope data. And I bring this in here just because it's such a nice graph to be able to show, many of the yellow lines are far beyond the blue lines. But the reality of this is there's a lot of noise in the data, and I'll call out geography specifically. We have a faculty member in geography that had a lot of success and a pretty significant improvement from her from her historical benchmark. And yet others that as they were transitioning to new course materials really struggled in that transition. And so there was a term of data that was weaker there. And same with intermediate algebra. Even though the results look amazing, I think we've also successfully proven that under no circumstances do students pass developmental math when it's a Friday 8 a.m. section. So we did have some sections that didn't play as well. And so I only call this out to say that there's more complexity in the data than maybe what comes together in one presentation graph. And then really our last point that before I pass the time to the next presenter is really our focus. NGLC is very interested in this, the Gates Foundation is interested in this, and we are as well. How do we really have this closed loop emphasis of saying, we develop open resources, we share them, we use them, and then we assess results and use that open licensing and the control that we have to improve the materials. We took a run up this hill and we really weren't successful. We ran into scope issues, I think, of just trying to change too much at once with our faculty teams and people feeling overwhelmed, and so we backed off. We ran into some technology issues. This really requires the assessment data to be coming out of systems in a way that can support immediate, wide-scale analysis, and that was a complexity that we hadn't planned for sufficiently. And so it's really a major focus for our project in spring of 2013 before we focus on developing new course designs beyond the initial work that was done, to really come back to the work we've done with our partners and work through this process of how can we close the loop so that we can, my last bullet here is really our vision is you get a new textbook edition from Pearson because they are there's a profit driver. They want to make sure that students can't sell back those textbooks, that they're going to be able to drive additional revenue. Well, what if new editions of our learning materials were driven based on learning results, based on new research and new solutions and technologies that are available to improve learning? And that's really we're trying to take a step towards that. And so hopefully 2 quarters from now, we'll have some interesting presentation materials for you about what we've done well there and the mistakes that we've made and lessons learned, so that together we can share some learning and experience around this. The last, I just have my contact information here. The last thing I wanted to hit on as I did this, our research has been supported by David Wiley's research team at BYU. We have a sister grant to the Follow-on Kaleidoscope dollars that is supporting research for our project, but also for any other open education adoption across higher education. So the Open Course Library is participating in that as well. And I believe Scottsdale Community College is participating in that as well with their developmental math work. So I want to make sure that please drop me a note, and I'm happy to connect you into that process if you have if you would like some research support and would like to be able to kind of jump into this process, and that way we can compare results and understand with each other what is working better about what you're doing and what we might be able to learn from that, and vice versa. So I hope that some of the research work that we're doing is setting up a framework for better sharing and collaboration around results, in addition to sharing and collaboration around materials. And would look forward to connecting with anyone that wants to join with us in that.
All right. Thank you very much, Kim. And I'm sure that you out in the audience probably have questions for Kim. At this point, we'll probably just ask you to type those in the chat window or save them till the end, because we're going to move on fairly shortly to our next speaker. I just wanted to ask you, Kim, I know you and I talked about 6 weeks ago, and there were still opportunities for pilot colleges to join Kaleidoscope for the future projects. Are there still opportunities for that as well?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So if this is of interest, please don't hesitate to reach out. We would love to bring in new partners, especially institutions that already have some familiarity with open resources, and would love to work with you.
All right. Thank you very much. All right. Next, I want to move on to Dr. Naseem Ibrahimi. Excuse me. Naseem joined Anne Arundel Community College in Maryland in 2011 as the Director of Learning Outcomes Assessment. She received her PhD from Pennsylvania State University previously to that. In her role at Anne Arundel Community College, she serves as the U.S.-based research consultant on the Bridge to Success project. That project was a Next Generation Learning Grant funded project, and it's been a collaboration between Open University, UK, MIT, Anne Arundel, and University of Maryland University College. And she has some wonderful information to share with us as well. Naseem?
Thank you, Una, for allowing me the opportunity to share the results of our Next Generation Learning Challenge Wave 1 grant, the Bridge to Success project. As you mentioned, this is a collaborative project involving the Open University in the UK as the driver, Anne Arundel Community College in Maryland, University of Maryland University College also in Maryland, and MIT as the consulting institution. The OU led the initiative, providing the initial OER content. So much like the Kaleidoscope project, it was less about designing new content, but instead adapting and adjusting the existing OU content for a US-based audience. Anne Arundel Community College and University of Maryland University College's faculty and staff were instrumental in facilitating this adaptation of the materials to fit our US-based curriculum. The researchers in the UK and myself here in the US have really worked together to explore the impact of the materials on student success and retention. And what you'll hear from us is much like what you just heard in terms of the challenges of having very strong assessments of success and retention. Before I get into the information, let me share with you our goals. As we know, approximately 2/3 of our students are entering our community colleges with a developmental need, many of those in mathematics. The focus of the project was to provide academic readiness content in areas of study skills and math with 2 OERs, Learning to Learn and Succeed with Math. Both are aimed at better preparing our learners for the successful transition into the higher education environment. Other goals include ensuring all materials are open, discoverable, and standards-based, so really aligning them with our curriculum, increasing the awareness and impact of OERs in general to support teaching and learning, and in line with NGLC's mission, the content was intended to support underserved populations. And we focused our pilot recruitment specifically to meet this goal. The 5th goal that you see here on the slide was to look at the sustainability and impact of OER, so the use of them and their impact on success and retention. And let me tell you a little bit about the materials themselves and our pilot institutions. The Learning to Learn content is comprised of a series of modules, each focused on common skills needed to be a successful learner. Learners work through the interactive modules to enhance skills such as goal setting, time management, problem solving, and critical thinking. Students are encouraged to keep learning journals, watch videos, listen to audio, read scenarios, etc. to fully engage with the materials. In much the same way, Succeed with Math is designed with the learner in mind. As I mentioned, about two-thirds of community college students enter higher education with a developmental need, and many of them in math. So this is a real asset to the field. Whether they've been away from math for some time, as with our returning students who need a refresher, or for those that have a fear of math or a high level of math anxiety, Succeed with Math, or we affectionately call it SWIM, can help. The modules are designed to build the learner's confidence and reduce their anxiety while guiding them through a series of interactive modules with real-world applications. Students improve their basic math skills and understand how to use resources. They develop problem-solving strategies and practice their general study skills to become an effective learner, and again, build those math skills with the emphasis on the real-world applications. Both of the materials are ADA compliant and accessible and integrate well with learning management systems. What we've noticed is the pilot institutions have remixed and wrapped the content in a variety of ways. For example, Anne Arundel Community College's Student Success course aligned some of the Learning to Learn modules with their existing face-to-face curricula and embedded it as a resource in the course. They particularly like to use the time management module. Goodwill, another one of our pilots, used the Succeed with Math materials to help prepare their learners for the GED, and I'll talk about some of their specific outcomes in a little bit. Prince George's Community College offered the materials as a recruitment tool of prospective students. With the many ways for a learner and the instructor to use the materials, professional development and training was offered through the grant to ensure outreach and success of the project. So most specifically, we have currently 12 pilot institutions that have used the materials, which exceeds the goal of 10 that we had set in the grant, with more beginning the use of their materials in the winter and spring terms. Most of them using the materials face-to-face, online, or hybrid, and some using only parts and some using all components. Other colleges that I haven't yet mentioned, Greenville Technical College, Delta College, I did mention Goodwill, Shippensburg University, the Baltimore Mayor's Office of Employment Development, Frederick Community College, that's just a few of them, are using the materials as a resource for either their incoming high school students or high school students in their county, returning adult learners, first-time students, or prospective college students. So as I mentioned, they can be used standalone or embedded into the curriculum. Some instructors have chosen to pull assignments, assign it as homework, or just use it as additional resource material for their courses. So on to the exciting stuff, the outcomes and the results. Our goal, set by the grant, was to reach 6,000 unique visitors to the site. And as you can see, we've exceeded that to over 8,000 users to date. The goal of 750 pilot participants is also exceeded. We've reached over 1,800 pilot participants in the duration of the grant. And we've measured the impact of the content on retention, recruitment, and success. We've mainly gathered our retention and success measures from instructor reports of student progress. So here's what the instructors report. Of the students that have completed the materials, almost 94% persist to the following semester. Some of the instructors have reported following term, and their terms are in quarters, but they are included here as a persister. 95% of them report their students master the subject matter itself. 85% master deeper learning. Our deeper learning measures were those of communication, critical thinking, problem solving, etc. About 88% of our sample population were low-income students. Remember that NGLC's focus is to target underserved populations. They were particularly interested in low-income learners. So we have quite an abundance of those in our population. That's how we recruited them for our pilot. But as you notice, they do very well. About 92% persist into the following semester, 97% master the subject matter, and 89% master the deeper learning as reported by the instructors. Of the non-college partners who have completed the initial pilots, all have chosen to continue using the Bridge to Success materials, and I think that's a real testament to the materials themselves. Other outcomes have also been specifically measured by each of our pilots. Different pilots have had different goals in using the materials and thus have had different metrics that they've been reporting. As I mentioned previously, the materials have been used at a family support center as part of Goodwill in their pre-GED and GED programs. what we have in terms of their numbers, of the 35 students who originally failed the math entrance exam, 80% passed after working with the Succeed with Math content for a 1 to 3 week period. There was also an average score increase of 32% after studying online.
Excuse me, if you're on the phone, could you please *6 yourself so that we don't get an interference? Go ahead, Nassim.
Sorry about that. And as we heard from Kim, I just want to point out some of the key takeaway experiences we've had from a research standpoint out of this process. And in terms of the nature of OER as being open and accessible for the learners, it makes it very difficult to directly measure student success or their future success in their courses and their retention. What we found with our methodology is that it was very difficult to identify an individual learner in the system, and thus difficult to track them through their own institution's data system. And although we've begun to find ways to facilitate this process and access a richer set of data and findings, applying the systems across all of our pilots has proved quite challenging. We hope that in the future, as Kim had mentioned, that OERs and the platforms that house them will really expand to allow for this type of rich data to be extracted and used to explore the impact not only on the learning, but also on teaching and improving our courses. Although the project has been the recipient, as you can see, of a variety of awards in its short lifespan, the greatest reward can be summed up by one of our participants, and I quote, "This experience gave me the tools and tips needed to succeed in almost any course." And she goes on to say, "I was pleasantly surprised by the enormous improvement I noticed during this semester. I'm thankful I was introduced and participated in the Bridge to Success opportunity." So I'll close there, and thank you for your attention. So please feel free to contact us with questions or for more information about the project.
All right, thank you very much, Nassim, for that really informative presentation. And I think at this point we will hold questions till the end, but please do type those questions in so that we can answer those at the end here. All righty. At this time, I want to introduce Dr. John Opper. He is the Executive Director at the Florida Virtual Campus, and he is filling in for Dr. Robin Donaldson, who was scheduled to be our speaker, but unfortunately couldn't join us today. John has been working in the field of e-learning for the last 12 years as the Executive Director of the Florida Distance Learning Consortium, which has recently changed its name and been reorganized into the Florida Virtual Campus. He's the Director of Distance Learning and Student Services for the newly created Florida Virtual Campus, and the which now continues to develop and operate the Orange Grove Repository, which features many open textbooks and openly licensed educational resources. And I know from working with Robin that for the last 3 years, the Orange Grove project at Florida Virtual Campus has been doing surveys with students and faculty about OER. And we're really looking forward to hearing from John about the results of those. John, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly.
Super. Well, I appreciate everybody for putting up with me. You get the pitch hitter today. Robin could not be with you, but I'm happy to fill in for her and to give you a sense of what we've been working on in terms of our surveys. Our Open Access Textbook Project was really a 3-year initiative to create and look at sustainable models for the discovery, production, and dissemination of open textbooks. And as a part of that work, we conducted 2 surveys. They were one a student textbook student survey and a faculty survey, asking for their perceptions and experiences with not only open textbooks but open educational content. Our last round of surveys that we did, which we will continue to do annually and probably expand them even more as we go, our last round closed in March, and we asked our students about the cost of textbooks, the impact the cost has had on their education, We asked faculty about their familiarity with open educational resources and asked them to identify barriers and opportunities for increasing adoption. We were fortunate to have over 20,000 student responses and 2,600 faculty responses. Generally, one of the first issues was trying to figure out, what faculty and students knew about them. And while I think it's hard to be a faculty member today who reads any of the journals and the Chronicle or anything like that and not have at least heard the term open textbooks, and their familiarity with them is high, but students generally don't understand that term. They don't really understand what an open textbook is. I think for them mostly it's either a free textbook or it's something combined with their course. Reported use by our faculty was low, although there was intention for future use of open educational resources and open textbooks. Many of them are interested in looking at it. We had only 6% reported having used all or part of an open textbook in our survey. One of the issues in terms of authorship and asking them about their interest in that, their interest was generally positive. However, relatively few reported developing or having developed an open textbook. That was 3%. Open courseware, only 4% reported having developed open courseware or open educational resources. Open educational resources was at 11% at present. 38% indicated that they were very likely or somewhat likely to author a portion of open textbook. Approximately 35% said they were very likely or somewhat likely to author a portion of an open courseware. And about 42% said they were very likely or somewhat likely to offer another type of open educational resource. One of the big issues for them in our survey in their decision to author an open textbook was the value of their time, support, professional editing services or support for that, and they really valued working with a co-author. That seemed to be a very important issue for many of the faculty in using or moving into this area. In terms of one of the more interesting things was the idea of perhaps chunking things. We found use patterns suggested that breaking OERs into small units might increase their usefulness. Much larger percentage of respondents reported using portions rather than entire open textbooks. That would be 22% versus 8%. And in terms of open courseware, 28% versus 7%. In terms of the value of interactive practice questions, were ranked very high among as digital study aids for supporting student learning, indicating their importance as supplements to textbooks. Interactive practice questions, PowerPoints, flashcards, video, interactive try it now activities were ranked most important by students. The results suggest that when developing textbook, authors may wish to consider development of these important study aids. A lot of our open textbooks that we have in the Orange Grove are pretty much PDF documents that lack a lot of the ancillaries that some of the commercial products have, and these are clearly valued by students. While faculty are familiar with the term open courseware, in fact 80% indicated that they were familiar with the term, less than a quarter indicated that they have used open courseware in support of their teaching. Of those who had used open courseware, 21%, over half responded using it for their own courses. 63% reported adapting it for use in their own courses, and 50% reported using it to prepare for teaching a class. One of the more interesting things for us, and one of the things that we were very concerned about, was the cost and the impact of cost and the reaction from students in that regard. Our legislature in Florida has been obviously interested in the high cost of textbooks, and one of the questions we often get from them is, what is the actual impact on students? And so, in fact, these survey responses were very helpful in providing some, I think, confirmatory evidence to a lot of things that people were either suspecting or they have heard anecdotally. 49% students indicated that they take fewer classes. 45% said that the cost of a textbook, or a high cost of a textbook, could cause them not to register for a class. 63% indicated they have not purchased a textbook because of its cost, and 22.6% of those indicated that they do that frequently. And 26 or almost 27% indicated that they have dropped a course because of the cost of the textbook. In terms of the scales that we had on the survey, 54% of the students who responded said that they spent or indicated that they spent more than $300 on textbooks during the spring of 2012, and 19% spent over $500. More than half indicated that they do not have financial aid that covers any of their textbook costs, and more than half, 63% to be more exact, reported not having purchased the required textbook because of the high cost. Almost 1/4 reported doing so frequently. Academically, 31% reported not registering, 35% took fewer courses, 14% dropped a course, and 10% withdrew from a course. In terms of the perception of a fee, which is one of the sustainability models that we had looked at, it was very helpful to us to learn that over half of the students reported being willing to pay a small textbook or materials fee for each course in which they use an open textbook. 61% reported being willing to pay between $5 and $10 for an open textbook materials fee, and 31% said they might be willing to do that. So when you put those together, that's pretty telling in terms of students' interest in paying at least some fee that gives them relief on the high cost of textbooks. Although over half perceived open textbooks, open courseware, and OER to be similar or greater in academic value to commercial resources, approximately 1/3 did not know their commercial value or opportunities they present. Open textbooks were rated as similar or more valuable by 63%. Open courseware was rated similarly by 51%, and open educational resources by 55% when compared to commercial resources. It is important to know that of those numbers, approximately 1/3 of those responding indicated they did not know the comparative value between open and commercial text resources. Recently, we conducted a survey to assess the extent to which our public institutions are using digital textbooks and resources. Included were 2 questions regarding open textbooks. The survey was sent to academic, business officers, library staff people, technology and distance education staff, as well as faculty leaders, in order to obtain multiple perspectives from each college and university. We didn't expect everyone to be able to factually respond to all of the questions. In many cases, some of the pilot efforts or some of the use of open educational resources are small and compartmentalized, so we tried to cover a wide range of the institutional landscape in asking the question. It was positive to see that there were both pilot and some coordinated efforts occurring at several of our institutions. If you'd like more information, there is Robin's contact information, and she will be more than happy to get into much greater detail than I am capable of today.
Well, thank you very much, John. There was a lot of interest in your figures and wanting to reuse those, I believe. So excellent. John, are the results of the more detailed results of the surveys available at the Open Access Textbooks.org site?
I believe the complete reports for the surveys, or at least the summary and data for the surveys, is both on that website and also in the Orange Grove repository, so I think a quick search will probably provide that information to you. If someone has trouble finding it, just shoot an email to Robin and she'll be happy to send it to you.
Excellent. Thanks so much, John. You did a wonderful job, and I know you were pulled in at the very last minute to do this, so thanks again.
No problem.
All righty. Before we start in on our question period, I just wanted to let you know that we will be back with a new schedule for our winter and spring webinars, which will resume in January, so stay tuned for that. And I hope everybody has a wonderful holiday break. And at this point, we are going to open up to questions. And I have gathered a couple, which I'll start with, and please do type in as you have additional questions. Naseem, there was a couple of questions posted about the Learn to Learn materials and the SWIM materials. Are those available online for faculty and or students to access?
Yes, they are available online, and you can go, I'm just going to pull it up myself. It's b2s.aacc.edu, and that website will navigate you to the project itself and also how to use the materials.
Naseem, would it be possible for you to cut and paste that URL into the chat window for folks?
I cannot open the chat window.
Okay,
so it was B2S.
It was b2s.aacc.
B as in boy, 2 S as in Sam, .aacc.edu.
Wonderful, and thank you, Tanya, for putting that in for us. Great. Let's see. We had a question earlier, which was kind of maybe a little bit too wide a question for this particular webinar, but Boyong from Washington State asked Kim about some of the research questions on access, etc. And Kim, I'm not sure. Do you have a place where people can see what those research questions are, or is that something better handled offline?
Well, I think that it's better handled offline, but I also, it drives home to me the fact that we should have the research instruments available with a Creative Commons license on them so that others can use them and build on them. So let me take that as for some reason that just hadn't occurred to me until the question came up. And I would love to have all of our research instruments available for others to use and share. So let me check in with David on that and see if we can find a way to get those publicly accessible, and maybe I can forward that to you, Una, to share with everyone.
Thank you, Kim. I think that would be really valuable. There's another question here for Kim from Paul. He is asking, what is the best way to get data on developmental math results?
Yeah, drop me a note. The biggest angst I have at this point about the developmental math results, I mean they're great results, is only we're so close to the end of a term where we have significantly more data. So Mercy College this term is running all 26 sections of intermediate algebra through the Kaleidoscope course design. So we're just a few weeks away from having significantly richer data, I think, on the developmental math results. And so I'd be happy to provide that next level of detail around the developmental math. And I do want to highlight we are using the Open Course Library materials, and our faculty members are very, very happy with them. The My Open Math Lab and Tyler Wallace's text and videos, as well as the texts that College of the Redwoods have developed. So, the complete set of problem sets and materials that have been created by Open Course Library and College of the Redwoods are really a nice starting point for open resources for developmental math. Thanks for that, Kim, and I believe Paul is quite familiar with those actually. Because I believe it's Paul G. from oh, perfect. Great. From Paradise Valley. Wonderful. Caitlin has a question which I think is a very valuable one, and one that I know that we're looking at here in California, as well as, of course, throughout the nation. For institutions that adopt OER and open textbooks, what platform do they use to distribute materials? Well, I'll just say this. I know that all three projects have used different platforms, and
John, since you haven't had a specific question, maybe you'd like to talk about the Orange Grove briefly, which is your digital repository for open.
Sure. We have used a couple of platforms in the past. We started back in 2004 with a Harvest Road platform, and we migrated away from that, and we're using Aquella currently to do that. We selected Aquella several years ago for a number of reasons, but several of the reasons we felt were very critical. One, it allows us to do extensive meta tagging as well as utilization of a controlled vocabulary for the contribution side of that. It also allows us to federate with other repositories that use the standard, I think it's Z39.50 protocol. And it allows us to harvest metadata from other repositories, and it is extremely flexible for what we try to do. So it has been very useful. It allows us to set up individual collections inside for institutions, and institutions have the ability to share or not share certain resources with within their own collection. So we felt like it gave us the most flexibility for what we were trying to do. It also has an e-commerce function, and it integrates with most of the major learning management systems.
All right. Thank you, John. Nassim or Kim, did you want to add anything else on platforms?
Our platform is actually through the UK. They're using LabSpace, but it's online, so you can use it, and it's LMS ready for any of your own existing platforms. So the materials can be embedded into Angel or Blackboard or whatever you have.
Thank you, Nassim.
We are, for the next phase of pilots, we're using Canvas for delivery of the courses. There's a mindset that is, the LMS, so it's really for delivery, not for the kind of repository like Orange Grove provides. But the LMS, the political nature of the LMS is an issue with all of this. And we've run a few circles around this one, and I think that where Lumen has landed. So I have to say that the Kaleidoscope project is LMS agnostic. That the materials can be used in any LMS, but where we're really trying to support faculty members through a change process, they need support, and trying to do that across 7 different LMSs is not wise. And so my shift in mindset around this really came from watching the CCOLI courses from Carnegie Mellon play out, where those are really running on the Carnegie Mellon platform. And some experience with, frankly, McGraw-Hill Connect, and watching the way faculty members are using McGraw-Hill Connect in conjunction with their existing LMS. And I do think that there is something to be said from a model that is, whatever the LMS is, that is the place where the students go to access their courses, and they have single sign-on there. That if we can think about kind of centralized OER platforms, delivery platforms, that allow them to access them from the LMS, and yet allow us to manage what's happening so that that delivery experience is really positive, rather than pushing out the management of that content to faculty members to import that into the LMS and to rebuild it in the LMS. That balance between having a content platform that is accessed from the LMS versus working with every LMS, it seems to me that there's something there that we need to get better at as an open community to make the adoption of OER easier for our faculty members.
Okay, thank you, Kim. We had a question for John from Tanya. What kind of changes are happening as a result of the data you've collected?
Well, there continues to be pretty strong interest in the data and the impact, and our legislator staff and our members are quite concerned about what can be done to reduce the high cost of textbooks. Most of the legislative effort in Florida has been at the secondary level, because that process about how instructional materials are adopted is very formal, controlled, and funded by the state. At the post-secondary level, because the decision about the use of instructional materials in the classroom predominantly resides with the faculty, at our post-secondary institutions, it's a little more difficult. There has been interest in looking into this area. However, right now there is so much dynamic change going on in the commercial publishing arena and concern over e-textbooks and how those can be delivered that I'm afraid that in some cases the use of open educational resources is getting a bit confused in with the whole issue around e-textbook use and new models for delivery on different mobile devices. So it's still an important issue for our policymakers, but there is quite a bit of chatter around the whole idea of the textbook and e-textbook and new forms of a textbook right now for us to make a lot of headway in this area. There is a discussion about potentially, there has been a discussion in the past about the potential for a low fee or some type of fee to support the use of open educational resources or open educational textbooks. But right now there's particularly no interest in charging more fees to students at all. And so I think it's still an issue that's on the front burner, but in terms of movement, it's a little unclear as to how far we're going to be able to go.
All right, thank you, John. And I certainly understand that confusion and have heard about that as well. At this point, I don't have any other questions in the chat window. But we will be here for a few more minutes, so please do type those in. Once again, I want to thank my amazing presenters today and that the wonderful presentations that they made for all of us. And I'm going to turn off the recorder, but as I say, we will be here for a few more minutes, so do feel free to chat in the window there. And thanks to all of you for coming this morning, and we hope to see you in January.